Hi, this is Mary from Kindedge.com, and today we're having story time about when you're trying to achieve big goals and big change in your life, you need totems, which is essentially objects in real life that bring your wise mind into daily life. Because I think we all know that we get clear on a better way to act. We get clear on how to deal with difficult people. Read a book and we learn exactly how we're going to start to act in the future. We learn exactly the wise way to respond to people, places, and things. We learn all of this wisdom, and then daily life gets underway, and something triggers you, or something unexpected happens, or you are faced with two choices that seem impossible and seem like they won't work together. And we need to have our wise mind embedded in our life with us on a keychain, on an object, on the front of a notebook. We need to have these wise words and the wise intentions embedded into real life to catch us. Because when life gets our mind busy and muddled and reactive, we will forget how to create new patterns and new grooves. So it is very, very difficult to dig in a new groove. So if you imagine the way that you've learned to handle things in life, or the way that your body automatically reacts to a difficult situation, anything unexpected, when things get busy and the phone's ringing and someone's asking you this, and then somebody does something in front of your car and everything's out of control, you lose track of your wise mind, your wiser self. And so if you are trying to achieve big life change, you need your wise words right with you. And a simple example that I can give is just on something that you always have, probably always have with you, is your smartphone, iPhone, whatever. If your screensaver on that phone is your latest wise words, your latest higher intentions, it will catch you when you're distracted. So I've had situations where I was working on the fact that I needed to start selecting for only those things that were amazing, meaning I've got enough of everything, and I keep letting in these kind of things that drag me down, that are least lesser things, going to an event or spending precious time on something that's like not even my preference, doesn't align with me, doesn't feed me, isn't part of my goals. And then also buying things that are just a little bit lesser, and that, I'm at a point in my life where I don't need the lesser thing. I need the one thing that's going to be worth keeping for a long time. And so I just put choose amazing on my iPhone. And there was a point where something had happened. It was a terribly unexpected event. It was going to be very disruptive for several weeks. It was going to waste a bunch of money, forcing me, what? I have to spend money on this and then do all these logistics. Are you kidding me? And I was like, ugh. And then I looked at my phone and it said I was going to make a phone call to reactively deal with this thing. And of course, I saw this screensaver that said choose amazing. And I went, oh, I'm going to be forced to spend several $1,000s. I'm going to be wasting several weeks. This is happening to me. How do I champion this without being a victim, but saying, I'm never going to stop driving forward towards my bigger goals? And I said, whoa, let's take this wasted money and make it an investment, making a bunch of things better during those wasted weeks. As I made the changes that was happening in this particular situation, I was able to then basically make a bunch of things better and invest. I said, it's not a waste of money, it's an investment. This is a forced change. And so I'm going to optimize this, and I'm going to take advantage of this forced change. And so sometimes it's great to be forced to do a clean out. And this was not the hurricane that hit. This was a completely different situation. So I was like, oh yeah, I have the opportunity. I'm not a victim. Yes, unexpected things will happen in my life, but I'm not a victim. This isn't a forced situation, but it's an opportunity to do bigger things, to make more things better faster. In fact, like wasting several weeks, but saying at the end of this several weeks that are wasted, I'm going to come out with a bunch of things way better. It's going to be a bunch of work, but a bunch of things are going to be way better. So that's my wise mind reminding me, hey, I committed to this. Between now and the end of my life, these are the ways that I'm going to be thinking. I'm not going to fall into old defaults where you think, oh, this is going to waste money. I better just conserve. Well, if you're wasting money anyhow, it's an investment. Turn that into an investment. But you think, oh, if something's, some insurance thing, some whatever is going to cost me money, you think conserve. And then you kind of get into this frozen commoditized situation of, well, I just bought that cheap thing because, well, it wasn't something I was choosing to do anyhow. Well, turn that upside down, turn it around. So you have all these opportunities throughout your day, and it could be as simple as, a coffee shop choice. Like there's a million little choices that if you have the words of your higher intentions with you right there, then you will become that. That will become you. And you will realize that all of these little jagged edges in your day are an opportunity to make amazing changes. And then other things like, the concept of if you're and you put the words just walk in with relation to your gym gear, you just remind yourself, I'm never going to give up on just walking in. And if you just walk into the gym or to the running club meeting or whatever, just walk in. And if you remind yourself to just walk in, then the power and the energy of people around you is going to help you actually achieve the workout that you had committed to making. So there's all these things where you take your wise moment, your inspired moment, but you have to embed it into your real life and get it with you. When your mind gets muddled, it's a favor to your future self. You are doing a favor to your future self by having your wise words, your higher intentions right there. And here's the key about digging in a new groove. You can only dig 1 or 2 new grooves every 3 or 6 months because it's really hard to reprogram your old default mode. It is very difficult. So if you're going to have a new habit, you have to start working on it and just be like, there's a million great things I'd like to be doing. I'd like to be doing perfect breathing. I'd like to be doing meditation. I'd like to be doing better conversations. I'd like to be more assertive. Just narrow down to 1 or 2 items in a few words. 1 word, 2 words, 3 words. Channel the animal was the other one that I used for the gym, which is get that energy, that animal energy. Channel the animal, because some of these things are not about being reasonable. You have to channel the animal. Sometimes when you're negotiating with somebody, channel the animal. You've got to get your animal nature energized. Give it permission. Give your animal energy permission to run free at the gym, in negotiations, in the way you approach a goal. Channel the animal. And so those were words that I narrowed down of like, what is this concept I'm currently working on? And I worked on it, and then I embedded it into some of my gym gear and other gear. And I sell these on kindedge.com. And so these are the things that you need with you to really dig in that new groove. Because think about marbles running on a surface. If there's a groove, all the marbles roll down the easiest way, that easiest groove. And you've got to be like, whoa, my marbles, all the energies, my default modes are always like marbles going to roll into that groove. They're always going to roll off the surface into that deeper groove. How do I work on etching a new way of behaving, a new default mode? And you have to work it and work it and work it. And the more you do it, the more you build that muscle for change. You work that new groove, and then you're like, hey, I'm no longer, say your problem is saying yes to things that you should say no to. I'm digging in a new groove. I was nervous and shaky the first time I said no to somebody. I was shaky the first time I disappointed somebody that always assumes I'm going to go to that club or meeting or party. Wow. And now it's default. Now it's like, no way. Heck no, I'm not going to that thing. Nope. And I'm not even busy. My time is totally free. I don't have to lie to you. I don't have to say I'm busy. I'm just going to say thank you, but no. Thanks for the invitation, but no. And you dig in that new groove, and then that feels like you. That feels like the new default you, is you just don't go where you don't want to be, where you're not fed mentally, physically, soulfully. So that's what I blogged about. And I've kind of given it all in my preamble here, but I'm going to just read my blog anyhow because I'm relaunching kindedge.com soon. And so I'm just cleaning up some of my old blogs. And this is the last one actually of the oldies. Okay. In Kindedge.com, I'm working to document tools that I built that enabled me to implement transformational change despite the many trains in my life that had left the station and were already in motion. Decades of guru books had at once inspired and shamed me. Why could I not make the huge internal and external transformational leaps that these books prescribed? The answer: I was belabored by empathy and entrapped by duty. You cannot birth children, sign for mortgages, agree to marriage, and commit to client projects only to drop the resulting obligations because you got inspired by the dreamy advice of some guru author. So that is to say, you've got all these things in your life going on that you've made commitments to. And then you can't just get inspired by something like, yay, I'm going to go to Africa and, volunteer forever. You can't just drop everything you've already started. Responsible, reasonable, long game minded people do not drop the ball on their commitments. However, they can make massive, sweeping, transformational changes in their lives to redirect their remaining minutes toward a greater purpose. After decades testing the advice of hundreds of inspo content creators, I finally got down and dirty to figure out the answer to the real underlying question in any goal. What works in real life? Doing what works in real life is about getting deeply acquainted with your truth, your circadian rhythms, your triggers, your vulnerabilities to emotional control, your strengths, your weaknesses, your hidden fears, and all environmental influences from people to places to things, each of which imposes a force that either buoys or blocks your progress. Over 20 years, despite my proficiency at setting up ambitious plans in masterfully detailed Excel spreadsheets, tries at my big personal goals always failed. My expertise in project management was no match for the giant potholes that kept tripping me up. These potholes were not matters of complex financials or sophisticated strategies. The potholes that left me stuck for decades had to do with weak muscles. Though the path toward my goal was clear in my mind, I did not realize that I had not built up the muscle for change that was required to pile drive my goals through the muck of real life. Building up our muscles for change includes optimizing practical parts of life, such as getting things around us organized, decluttered, and optimized for focused productivity. It also calls for foundational changes, such as improving one's health practices to ensure that our energy stores are sustainably high to enable us to take on big challenges. But getting fit for change also requires that we patch up the less visible Achilles heels that tend to trip us up in hard to decode ways. For example, we must decode and address childlike mindsets that leave us vulnerable to outside forces. Our plans will fail if we continue to fall victim to others' behaviors because we naively hold to the hope that all people will follow through on their commitments and promises. We grow ready for big change when we swallow the mature, real world wisdom that there are, in fact, good and bad people, and that we own the right to label them as such. In fact, we must proactively diagnose the agendas and patterns of all the people in our lives in order to pre-plan solutions for the many ways people around us might knowingly or unknowingly sabotage our plans. Example, a muscle for demanding evidence to back their words. I was a professional and proficient change management project manager in the unwieldy world of corporate communications for large global multi-million-dollar organizations. There are no cats harder to herd than hundreds of thousands of leader perspectives, country matters experts, legal limits, cultural concerns, and functional realities. I drove results and met deadlines in the most complex of environments. I did change management, corporate change management. While I could wrangle chaos like a boss in business, in my personal life, I repeatedly fell victim to it. Despite obvious patterns of sabotage over many years, I was always awash in surprise when yet another bad event would run my personal plans off the rails. I could not accept that the repeating patterns of chaos were the truth. I treated each hijacking event as an exception that required me to drop all my own goals just for this time to solve that one problem. And comment below if you've seen this happen in your life. Like, does it take you longer than necessary to see patterns that hijackers and accidents and exceptions are actually a pattern, more the rule, and that you're always running around solving those problems because people know that you will run around and solve those problems? I treated each hijacking event as an exception that required me to drop my own goals to solve. Instead of saying, wait, that's 3 strikes, 4 strikes, 5 strikes, 1,000 strikes. This clearly isn't working. It's time to make a macro change. I instead thought, wow, thank goodness I was there to valiantly save the day on that unpredictable emergency. Now I should be able to get back to my priority goals. But that never happened. My battle with chaos just reset to the beginning, like Bill Murray's alarm clock in the film Groundhog Day. I could not see the hidden beliefs that continually kept me circling in the same chaotic loop. It was only when I began treating myself as my own change management consulting client that I got down to the nitty-gritty of barriers to change in my life. I ran myself through a series of exercises that I delivered visible, documented, objective diagnostic data that showed me exactly where the problems lay. By documenting my planned actions and then tracking the actual outcomes, I was able to analyze the repeated points of failure. I discovered a behavior that caused me to live in an optimistic and self-defeating fiction. I'd rescue folks around me from the chaos they created. And to make that okay, I'd return to my little Excel spreadsheet and simply edit the dates on my project to the future. All my high priorities plans would be pushed to the future. The task planned for completion this Monday would be moved to 2 Mondays from now. The major milestones set for this year would be moved forward to next year, allowing a little extra time, which most certainly would be filled by other people's chaos and me continuing to tolerate it. That old behavior of politely and reasonably editing the dates on my own priorities never enabled the two opposing forces to collide. Being reasonable and absorbing the issues was a red carpet invitation for chaos to squeeze its way further into my life and crowd out all of my goals. When I visually tracked progress, or lack thereof, on my goals, and then forced myself to document in writing on real paper in a notebook the root causes of each point of failure, the truth came into focus. The data revealed something to which I'd been blind. I had been trying to drive a car with only 3 wheels. One wheel was flat, wobbly, dangerous. However, because this wheel was a human and was able to use words that disguised the truth, I had believed those words and kept trying to drive that car with a non-functional wheel. My Kindedge self-change management exercises enabled me to let go of the misguided hope that people who wield good-sounding words will always follow through on their oft-empty promises. Even if someone professes to be supportive or loyal or dependable or important and or powerfully able to help you, if their actual patterns in real life undercut one's goals and efforts with contradictory behaviors, absences, unnecessary emergencies, and chaotic life hijackings, they are none of the good things they profess to be. And share in the comments where you see this happening, because I've seen it with promises that employers make where they say, oh, we can help you so much more. Don't leave the company to that new job. Employers negotiating you back in. Oh, we'll give you this so much more career growth here. Da, 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 da. And then they kind of talk you into staying at the company. And in the end, you would have been better off leaving because they kind of just work you into, catch 22. Spouses, friends, people who want your loyalty, and they say, oh, well, I can get you in touch with this person. So do what I want, or stay with me, or be by my side, or stick with me. But it never really happens. They say, oh, I have so much more this. Stick with me because of this. And in the end, it's kind of it never plays out. At least not a 50-50 fair deal, not at the 50-yard line. But if you don't track that, you kind of start to build this imaginary bit in your head that like, well, this is a good decision because, well, this person's really influential, so I'm going to stick with this person. But is that person's influence really in line with your goals and your need to be free to drive your way? Objective data helped me kill the good girl mindset that was suffocating me and forced me to put on my big girl pants. Mature women and men can accept the reality that past performance is a far more reliable indicator of future behavior, and that is okay, and that it's okay to ration the amount of trust we give out based on that data. Accepting this truth was hard. I not only wanted to believe in the possibility of growth and change and improvement in all humans, but I also did not want to face the ruthless battles and the loss of stability that would come with making tough macro choices in order to rebuild an environment around me that was free from chaos. Meeting with the objective truth is a critical step in building your muscle for change. We often stay in a toxic job or a business deal or relationship or other agreement because we know that we're able to handle the chaos that pops up. And we imagine that known chaos is maybe better than unknown future. My new data-driven Kindedge reevaluation of absolutely every part of my life revealed something to the contrary. The risks of change are often far less dangerous than the risks and costs of remaining in chaos. It is hard to let go of all of the pure concepts we learned as children, wherein we assume equally good things about all people. But we can only do good work in the world if we know how to use each tool in our toolbox. You are not doing any good trying to smack a screwdriver at a nail. With humans, we must accept that some are good for parties, and some are good for creative experiences, and some are good frontmen for fighting legal battles. Some are to be trusted with your inner circle to support your most important endeavors, and some are to be avoided at all costs. And this is just the truth. You don't have to be great with every human. My diagnostic tools made visible that years of detailed plans had been continually hijacked by daily surprises, mistruths, and chaos bombs. I'd accepted each one as an unpredictable exception, halting my own plans to handle those issues. I did not see that the long-term outcome of me responsibly and reasonably responding to chaos was the death of my higher purpose. I saw that I edited the dates on my plans just one more time, and I would be placing the nail in my own coffin. I would eventually die with nothing of importance left behind for my sons. No longer could I allow my time and my mind share to be siphoned away to handle other people's chaos. And I'm going to pause there for just a moment. I'll be right back. Hi there. I told you I'd be back. Just had a little costume change because it's a few days later, and I'm going to fit this in before I finish work today. So continuing on the discussion, and we were getting to the concept of why do humans need totems? And I was giving you the story time from my blog about that. And so we are now connecting to making it real today, right now. So here I go, story time reading my blog. Along my path toward change, airport bookstore inspiration did, from time to time, energize me to envision the distant future. But with a life already in motion, there was no freeze frame moment wherein I could stop everything and make a directional change. I remained stuck with an idea in my head. When I turned to therapists and coaches, the only muscles I strengthened were those that enabled me to endure more toxic stuckness. I finally learned that I did not need more skills to mindfully, peacefully absorb the pain of my stuck state. I needed tools to frickin' pile drive real change through a brick wall. Once I realized this truth, all it took was my first Kindedge change management exercise, and I annihilated 20 years of stuck. Boom, bring on the change. My real world tools enabled me to get clear on all the actual barriers to the progress. I got clear on how my bad habit of kindly and respectfully absorbing outside threats was keeping me trapped. I got clear on my hidden fears and grew new muscles, including one that could transform fear into power. I created many more practical Kindedge exercises to continue opening doors to real change. Each succinct, doable, workable exercise served as one plank in what became a bridge toward transformational change. No entrepreneurial inspiration, nor productivity expert, nor divergent thinking promoter had really gotten down to connecting the dots of what works in real life. I needed these bite-sized worksheets to guide my muddled mind toward progress, even if I was inevitably stuck in the emergency room with my child on a Sunday night. I needed small tasks that would draw out of me the one next decision and the one next action that would keep me moving forward, even if my child's ankle is being wrapped up after a tough soccer game. With every new Kindedge exercise, I nailed down the details of my goals, my plan, my choices, and how every minute in my day needed to be invested differently in order to make real progress. Totems keep you connected to your wiser mind. So as we build momentum toward big life change, we will at times get busy and distracted until suddenly we find ourselves pulled off our paths by an old habit, an old mindset, an old social pressure, an old assumption. We can get talked into commitments by wolves in sheep's clothing who don't support our new goals. We can get pulled toward old distractions by people around us who are still moving in that direction. And we can be tempted to give up when mishaps or disappointments block our way. When things get hard, our tired bodies and reactive minds are not our best advisors. So when you're doing hard things, you today, here, right now, are not your best advisor. Who is your best advisor? Your wise mind. The mind you had when you had the clarity and the resolution to do this big thing. You need to make a connection between that wise mind and you today in the middle of the muddled mess. And that's where we need totems. Totems are objects that carry meaning, your wise words into every day. And you know what? This chain, I forgot, I put this on tonight because I have some big hurdles I'm going through. And I pulled this out of a drawer, and this locket has a meaning. It's a frog and a little girl conversing on chairs. This is, again, these things always happen in the middle of a video. It's perfect that I put this on tonight. This is a totem. This is something that brings me power and meaning of something, it's a locket and it has meaning. And so it's that thing that when I'm in the muddled, difficult, jagged edges, this is just getting hard and should I back off? This is going to help me. And so that's why we need totems. When things get hard, our tired bodies and reactive minds are not our best advisors. The clarity and energetic resolve you enjoyed on that bright sunny morning wherein you first defined your vision for the future tends to fade and become clouded by the jagged edges of the everyday. We need to embed totems in our daily lives to reconnect our wiser minds and our higher intentions. Reconnect to our wiser minds and our higher intentions. We have opportunities throughout the day to redirect our movement toward our priorities. It just takes the right words or symbols to remind us that the way we invest every minute and every dollar is a choice, and every choice points us in a given direction for better or worse. In my travels, I've been stricken by how universally important totems prove to be. Every society in every part of history has relied upon totems to continually reconnect distractible humans to the higher meaning and long-term intentions of a group, society, or community. Castles, churches, Governments, cities, families, clans, and more all invested in expensive and lasting tokens to display symbols of a certain meaning everywhere a human eye might see them. As you walk through any ancient city, you will see phrases and images embedded in walls, ceilings, chairs, floors, in any physical object imaginable, from robes to headdresses to canes to candle snuffers to swords to glasses to furniture and fabrics. Society's reliance on totems is about inserting triggers into real life that awaken otherwise robotic humans into a state of consciousness that makes them aware of their self-agency to make immediate choices. And this is the world's longest sentence. You've got to read my blog. This is hilarious. And of the connection between those choices and a distant, albeit heretofore imaginary, future reward. Objects we see, touch, and use throughout the day can connect us to our higher intentions and influence our habits and behaviors. So these totems. So I've been to China. I've been to all through Europe. I lived in Scotland. Think about clans. You think about symbols, castles, all these things. I lived in Scotland for a year, over a year. It was actually ended up being like a year and a half because it was a whole summer, a whole year and a little bit more. Lived in South Africa. There's tribes, there's languages, there's signs, all these. I've lived in so many places where symbols are so important. So my example of choose amazing. When we set our sights on big goals or a change for the future, we are essentially believing in something that does not yet exist, right? Your goal starts in your head and it doesn't exist yet, but it's got to be real to you. The future is an invisible concept. Dreams, ideas, and even well-defined goals are too easily obfuscated by the dominant presence of noise and stuff and people that pre-fill our days. Totems help you make your intentions for the future more real and present in your day, transforming every daily act into a more binary choice that either continues moving toward the status quo or takes a turn in the direction of your desired change. Today, in real life. Here's one example of how this played out recently in my life. I've been through a decade of massive, sweeping, transformational change. I've recovered from years of life hijackings and many more very recent and acute challenges and threats. I've scraped through every default mindset and behavior, and I modified every pixel of my life, from how I eat to how I interact to how I commit or decline to how I interact with the world at large. I've done all of the hard work to change from the bottom up, and I feel I've reached a new plateau wherein I still continually optimize my ways of operating, but I'm in a good spot. As I shifted to a form of business as usual, I think I'm kind of operating pretty well in this new world. I documented all the mindsets I would need to continue to be brave and innovative and self-reliant in how I carried my purposeful plan forward. I had many words and many mantras to keep me refocused, help me refocus each morning. Words that reminded me to push, to stay open, to inquire, to solve for me, to follow my rhythms, to nourish my body and soul, to value experimentation, and to use my own strengths as tools for pushing through my areas of weakness and more. My daily mindset refresh list was very useful. It was a very useful tool for re-anchoring my fuzzy 5:30 a.m. brain to my wise mind. However, I also saw the need for a quick and simple quip that represented the overall ethos of all of these things collectively. I pondered this for a while and I played with words that might convey the umbrella theme. Eventually, I came to the phrase, choose amazing. This phrase I felt would always help me see the binary choice in any moment between doing that which aligns with my wiser mind and my higher intentions versus doing that which is a reaction to the outside expectations or events. I saved this phrase as the image on my iPhone's lock screen and just kind of forgot about it. So for a long time on my iPhone's lock screen, it said choose amazing. So I would see that repeatedly when I would pick up my phone. At one point last fall, which was for this blog, this is like 3 or 4 years ago. At one point that last fall, I was rolling along in the day, juggling all the complex pieces of my life to ensure purpose and duty were prioritized with the right counterbalance each day. I was carefully ensuring I handled the right mix of personally important prioritized, emotionally important priorities, financially important priorities, and unplanned emergencies. So I was maxed out, but operating in alignment with my values. I parked my car outside my home and began opening some of the mail I had just picked up. The first item was a letter announcing an unfortunate, out of my control mandate, the outcome of which was that I was going to be forced to lose over 2 weeks of time, to waste thousands of dollars, and to endure great stress because the issue at hand carried risks to my already at-risk health, as well as to the health of my son and my dog. I was given no choice. This was thrown at me and was happening. So I got this letter in the mail that said, by the way, announcement, this is happening. It's going to cost you money. It's going to cost you time, and you're not going to like it. And it's out of alignment with what you're seeking to do for your world. My reactive, muddled mind went into the direction of, great, what a waste of time and money, neither of which I have much to spare. I've done everything I possibly can to do the right things, and yet my productivity and other priorities will now be halted for weeks. I cannot believe I've worked so hard to wrap up so much of other people's messes and get all of my affairs in order, and yet now I'm being hijacked by this new announcement. This is just one more event that is happening to me that I did not choose. That was my initial reactive thought. By default, my reactive mind triggered me to grab my phone, and as I went to unlock the phone, I was suddenly rescued by my wiser mind, the words of my wiser mind that I had embedded, my past self had embedded in my phone for my future self. There on the lock screen, I saw the totem I'd embedded long ago because I knew I would need it here today. I was awash with a sense of my truer inner spirit. As I looked at the words, choose amazing, I felt the impish spark I needed in that moment. Choose amazing. This was my own self-imposed double dog dare. It resurrected my deeper awareness of the hero's tale I'm writing. There are no good stories without a few dragons and sword fights. Now, are there? The totem that was my lock screen reconnected me to powerful truths. Yes, life will throw lemons, but also, if I'm paying for all those lemons, then I own the right and the opportunity to make choices that are amazing for me. Before I reactively began making my phone calls, I resolved to maximize the value of this otherwise wasted time and to make it inspiring and productive in a different way. I chose to invest this otherwise wasted money to leapfrog to some on-hold plans that would end up improving my space and my work environment. So I just said, all right, if we're wasting money and time, let's make this all better. Let's check off a bunch of the boxes that I had on hold and accelerate. Let's accelerate greatness. I also chose to plan realistically in order to avoid victim-driven regrets. I built in time for emotionally important priorities, and I used the experience. And so, for example, I said, I'm not going to miss some of my son's senior year important things, some of the important things going on that year. So I'm like, I'm not going to let some of those personal priorities get missed. And I use the experience as yet another piece of evidence of the power we have to choose, even when life attempts to make us victims. Totems are positive landmines you plant to ignite an empowering fire in the unpredictable future. Kindedge is about change today. Totems are just one tool in the Kindedge toolbox. We need these sort of devices to help us bring our intentions for the future into today. As I shared in my personal example, I imagined a different future, but by not forcing that future into today, I remained reasonable, responsible, polite, and blind to the truth. When you commit to making a change today, you are forced to have the fierce conversations needed to address the hidden barriers. Many people will politely agree, many people will politely agree with you and yet hijack your plans. So sometimes when you're negotiating, people say, oh yeah, I support your new goal, but they'll still find ways to pull that rug out from under you when you actually want to get in motion. Many environments will seem supportive, yet will distract you from your goals and siphon your energies. If in this moment you connect with your higher intentions and address the truth of what or who is standing in the way, you begin to make transformational change happen today. This process is tough as it pushes you to your uncomfortable edge, which is how we get the name Kindedge. That's the essence of the term Kindedge. It is, however, the only path to real change. Action today. Your task today is to make a list of everything you see, hear, and touch during your day, and consider how you might embed messages or symbols onto those surfaces. I offer many on kindedge.com. So I have totems, objects of meaning, clothing, bags, that kind of thing that have inspiring words in them. And I've described the meaning. And you can access them through kindedge.com, but that will link to the actual store, which is, if you go to Amazon, you could just on Amazon search Kindedge and you will find the Amazon store for the Kindedge totems. You will feel a new energy the minute you take action on this. So start to analyze everything you touch, whether it's a picture frame on your desk, whether it's a mug, and think, how can I embed my wise words into these objects that I touch every day? As you further clarify your vision for the future and practical Kindedge path for getting there, you'll develop more anchor phrases that you can embed into more objects. Here are a few starter ideas for displaying symbols and messages in everyday objects. A glass you keep by your bedstand, an alarm clock, your coffee mug, the windshield on your car, so you can put words on the windshield of your car, a tag on your keychain, anywhere on your laptop, your phone case, your phone's lock screen, a playlist in your music or podcast app, underwear. I sometimes wear Wonder Woman underwear. Legit. Really fun. When you know something that nobody else knows, it's really fun. It keeps you jazzed for a tough day. Pajamas or t-shirts, hat, dry erase marker notes on your bathroom mirror. I always have dry erase markers in my bathroom and I write words on my mirror always. When I wake up, when I go to bed, I'll put a message, channel the animal, whatever it is I want to inspire me the next day. Bracelets, beads, necklace pendants, car or home floor mat, pen, umbrellas, shoelaces, socks, a pad of paper, a frame on your desk, a pen box, customized leather journal cover, and anything else your fingers touch or your eyes behold throughout your day. So leave a note in the comments. What are the things that you see most during the day, that you touch, that you grab, something that you open, what you see in the car? What message can you embed there? And how will that redirect you towards your big goals for big life change? So thanks for joining me for this story time. And you can visit kindedge.com to see more of this. Yeah, you could read the rest of the blog. There's a little bit more in the blog there, but I won't go on because I have to go get in an Uber, go have a little fun. So please share kindedge.com with others. Please visit kindedge.com and sign up for the email list. Please like and share this YouTube channel so that I can keep doing YouTubes, and stay in touch and share your thoughts. And I don't know, I hope you'll join me on this Kindedge journey for the project of you. It is not going to be easy, but it's going to be fun. Peace.